You are listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I am your host, Celine Yeager. Each week, I bring you advice from athletes, scientists, researchers, and other experts to help you feel and perform your best, no matter what your hormones are doing. This show is a production of Live Feisty Media. Hello, strong, feisty women. I hope you all are well. So, when the first signs of menopause hit, the temptation can be really strong to throw everything we have at it. All the supplements, all the hacks, all the hormones. But not everything there is right for everyone, and doing too much at once can backfire, leaving you feeling worse, and perhaps wasting a lot of time and money or all of the above. So this week, we take a more measured, targeted approach with pharmacist, nutritionist, and certified menopause lifestyle practitioner and marathon runner, Sarah Gray, who is also the author of It's Not You, It's Perimenopause. Sarah explains how incremental, sustainable changes matched to your body, your goals, your real life can help you feel better now while also protecting your health in the long run. And this was a really fun conversation, and I appreciated her viewpoint as someone who works with both pharmaceuticals and supplements, and she has a really great cake analogy that she throws in there, and I just really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you do as much as I did. All right, before we get to it, as always, give us a follow at Feisty Menopause on Instagram and Facebook. Come on in to our private Hit Play Not Pause Facebook groups, where you can join 36,000 other women just like you who are helping each other out 24/7. And if you like the show, please follow it and give it a good review on your podcast platform and share it with a friend. It really does help the show to grow. And those of you who have already done that, thanks so much. I really appreciate you. All right, finally, very quick thanks to Heddas for their support of the show. If you are looking for running shoes for women, designed by women, using women-specific foot models, and believe it or not, not everyone does, a lot don't, Hedda has you covered no matter what kind of runner you are. So thanks, Heddas, for your ongoing support. And with that, enough of me. Let's have a few words about our awesome sponsors and get on with the show. All right, Sarah, welcome to Hit Play Not Pause.
Thank you so much for having me, Celine, and good morning for me, but good evening for you, I think.
I work with a lot of people. It is. But I do work with a lot of people in Australia. We have a lot of listeners in Australia, so it is not unusual for me to juggle this daytime zone. Yeah, like where you're just in another day, and that's just how we operate.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
So talk to me a little bit about your background. I know you have a new book that is coming out. When is the book out? It's Not You, It's Perimenopause?
It's out, actually, so it's almost 3 weeks. Yeah.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you. I have one of my big book launch events here in Sydney tomorrow, so it's exciting. So I'm a pharmacist and nutritionist, and I also have a certification in menopause lifestyle therapy. So I've done a bit of training in that regard too. So all those three things together, I really love using all those different skills and knowledge and experience to help women in midlife really get through this phase and thrive. I think it's a great phase of life, and there's so much opportunity for us all.
So what were you first? Were you a pharmacist first?
Yeah, I was. Yes, I was a pharmacist first, and I just love being a pharmacist. I love the
Tell me a little bit about that. You're the first pharmacist we've had on the show. And what do you do actually behind that counter?
Yeah, I love being a pharmacist. Behind the counter, it does look like we're just getting a box and putting a label on it, but we're actually checking that every time a script comes into us, we're checking that the medication is the right dose for that person, that it doesn't interact with any of the other medicines they may have had before, that it's treating the right thing. So the doctors are humans too, so we're there as well to make sure the dose is right, particularly for children, for antibiotics, for example. And then also sometimes your doctor may not have known something that we've discovered. So when we take your script in, we might discover you're taking a supplement, or that you do intermittent fasting, or different things that then will mean, well, then when we dispense it to you, we have to explain what the precautions need to be, or if you are fasting and you need to take things with food, how you can manage that. So we're the experts in medicine, and we're trying to make sure you get the most out of that medication that you take. And we are doing lots of thinking and talk, brain work behind the counter, and often juggling phone calls with doctors and questions from people as well. So I think it's a great profession because, I love helping people. And when you're a pharmacist, you help so many people all day long, and you just get that fulfillment at the end of the day.
And then when did you get into nutrition?
Yeah, so probably about, 15 years ago. I hate saying stuff like that. It makes you think, gosh, time goes fast. I was living in the UK with my now husband, and I developed some really bad food intolerances. I could barely even drink water at some point. Like, I really got quite bad stomach upset. And I went to lots of different health professionals, and I got lots of help. But I got really curious about what was happening in my body. And I also always really loved cooking and food. So I thought, I think I need to sort of explore this a bit more, being the curious person that I am. And so I studied my Masters of Human Nutrition. And I actually honestly thought that pharmacist hat would be taken off. I'd hang it up, and then I'd put the nutrition hat on, and I'd start my new life as a nutritionist. But actually, the two things just go so well together. And I never thought about that at the time. Like, it wasn't, people think, oh, you're so strategic doing that. It wasn't. It was more just following my passion. But now when you think about the way supplements work, I'm thinking from a nutritional perspective, but also then that pharmacist lens about how are things being processed by the liver and by the kidney, and then how does it interact with your medication. So really, it goes really beautifully together from a holistic viewpoint.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I need to know the last piece is now certified menopause practitioner.
Yeah. So as a nutritionist, I run an online clinic because I really wanted to keep up my one-to-one patient work with nutrition, because I really love that and find it fulfilling. And the local gym where I used to live used to send me lots of clients, and wonderful clients, and often women in midlife. And when you're a nutritionist, people often come to you to lose weight. But I really struggle with that as a main intention with somebody, because I find if you come, in my experience with clients, and this is not for everybody, but the majority, if your goal is just to lose weight, often that becomes quite challenging, because that's just weight alone is not a metric for health, right? So I would always dig down with people and find out, what is that real health goal that you want to achieve? And so many women that were coming to me were saying, well, I've also got, brain fog and energy lack, and I've got these symptoms, hormonal symptoms, and actually I want to have more energy. And so we really started zoning into those hormonal changes, and hundreds of women were coming to me, and I was seeing them having the same revelation that a lot of it was these hormonal changes. And I really got a system together that was really helping them build things out. And we could talk about that later. And so I thought I really need to learn more about this. So I did training to become a certified menopause practitioner, and really deep dived a lot more into the specifics of all the different areas. But really the stuff I was doing with women was already really helping them. So that was bolstering my knowledge a bit more, and continuing to educate me along that journey as well.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about your own experience, because I do want to hear how you work with women. But when our correspondence, you mentioned that you run marathons, and that you are also maybe in perimenopause yourself. What's your journey here?
So I am in the early stages of perimenopause, and for me, and I'm explaining these symptoms because it will be relevant with the marathon piece. My biggest symptoms are that my periods are irregular, and when they come, they're very, very heavy. And then I'm having a lot of brain fog and mood changes as well. So definitely in that zone, and being treated for that myself too. And to me, because I do a lot of running, I've done 2 full marathons and I do lots of half marathons. I just love running. I never really considered how that would impact me. I just sort of, you just push on, don't you? You have
Perimenopause, you mean?
Yeah. I thought perimenopause, heavy periods, bit moody, bit more tired, shouldn't impact my running, because I'm really dedicated to my running. But it really dawned on me, and it wasn't until probably the latest marathon that I did a few months ago, because I'd always managed to just be really lucky. I'd always managed to get up on marathon day. It wasn't my period. I was feeling energetic. It just happened that, the period hadn't come, because I don't know when it's coming. But this marathon, I always know my 3rd day of my period is just really heavy, to the point where I'm changing, sanitary items several times a day. And I woke up 3 days before the marathon and I had my period. And I knew that that day I ran was going to be that day. And I went on your support group on Facebook and asked I got some wonderful advice from women who had that experience before around, what can you do? Get period undies, all these things. But it didn't really, I was so distraught, I nearly didn't run. Because I thought to myself, how can I possibly get through that distance of kilometers with all the other compounding factors that you have in a race like that? I had a bit of a sore hip. I thought I could manage that. But on top of that, I'm going to have no energy. I'm going to have to stop 3 or 4 times to change my sanitary items. Even if I do wear period undies, they're going to get pretty heavy and feel uncomfortable. I'd never run with them before either. And you never change anything. You would know this the morning of a marathon. And I was really flat, and I just sat back and thought, gosh, this is just so hard. Like, there'll be all these other people running on the weekend. Some will be in my situation, but the majority of people won't have this element to be thinking about while they're trying to get through it. So it was a real testing time. I did the marathon.
What did you do? Like, how did you manage it?
I did a much slower time than what I had hoped because I stopped twice and there was big queues for the bathroom. But actually, my husband was really amazing in this because I was like, well, I'm just going to push through and I'll wear these period undies. And if it's uncomfortable, I'll just push on. And he said something to me that really made a big difference. And I hope to be able to use this and have been with my clients. Just be kind to yourself. Like, you are doing a really big thing and you happen to have this very heavy period. You don't know how heavy it's going to be because you're in perimenopause. If you need to stop and change your sanitary items so you feel comfortable for the next 20 kilometers, just do that. And he actually called me. He was running too, but he called me about the 20-kilometer mark and he said, how are you going?
He called you during the run?
Yeah. He's like, how are you going? And I'm like, I'm all right. He goes, have you stopped? And I'm like, no, I haven't. And he goes, should you be stopping? I'm like, probably. And he's like, well, there's some toilets up on the right because we're quite close together. And he's like, when you get to those, just pull over. If it takes 10 minutes, who cares what the time says? And I really just did that, took my time, didn't worry, and I felt more comfortable and then stopped again further on. So yeah, it was a huge learning for me. It was,
Yeah.
I was worried mainly about being embarrassed that there would be, blood running down my leg or something. Like, just, you've seen those posts, right, on the internet, and
Oh, yeah.
in front of it. And so I was like, I'm going to be that person. It was really quite scary going into that.
Well, thank you for sharing that because you are by far alone. And I remember that period where, pun intended, where I just didn't know when something would show up. I mean, I just didn't know. You could be midway through a marathon like that and just be like, oh, look, that's great.
Yeah. It's unpredictability, right? And of course it's going to happen a couple of days before, but it's that unpredictability. And then when it comes, if it's that heavy, it's the amount of blood you're losing, the iron, your energy levels are really low as well. So it really impacts you. And that's a whole week of a month, really, when that's happening. And it's just so much in this phase of life, we put up with so much as women and we just kind of think that's just how it has to be. But I love giving people the tools to do things so that you can actually feel better and get through those times.
Have you been doing anything to manage, your health and everything else with that heavy bleeding that you're experiencing?
Yeah, I have. So especially with the marathon training, my iron levels, and I'm also a vegetarian. I do I eat fish occasionally. So
Okay.
I really have struggled with my iron levels because of that and losing a lot of blood. So my doctor has been carefully monitoring it, and I have tried some progesterone pessaries, and that's to try and regulate it, to try and reduce the amount of bleeding. Unfortunately, they make me feel very, very tired and sleepy, so I couldn't really tolerate them. But what I have done is made sure that I'm eating more iron-rich plant-based foods. I'm taking an iron supplement, and I have had an iron infusion. The lesson now is before you're doing a race, 3 months before, you get that blood test and check that everything's in order, particularly your iron, your vitamin D, all of those really important things, your B vitamins, because if you're doing a really long race or a trek or a ride, your body needs oxygen. And if you haven't got the iron, I've done a marathon with low iron. It's just it's not good for you. It's not safe either. So that's the main thing that we've been looking at.
Yeah, excellent. So let's talk about how you work with women. Like when someone comes to you, what are they usually coming to you for a weight issue, or what are they usually coming to you for? Like, I'm talking our audience, midlife women.
Yeah. Do you know it's still probably 50% come with that weight, with the
Yeah.
weight loss. Maybe that is because I'm getting a lot of my clients from local gyms, so people that are going there to sort of lose weight. Um, and the weight is the midline weight gain. So the common story is, women between, say, 38 and 45, 46, usually is my current client base average, would say, I can't shift this midline weight. I've been going to the gym, doing all the right things, and it won't move. So then we then step into that hormonal support piece. And then the other type of patient that I get very, very commonly is people that come in and they just cannot manage their mood and their energy, and particularly at work. Because if you think of the age group that this happens to, we're in a busy phase of life, often at the peak of our career, maybe aging parents, young children. It's a really complex time, as you would definitely know. And they think I'm just exhausted. There's just too much going on and I can't focus at work. I'm not performing. So it's that side too. I get a lot of corporate kind of clients. So how I help them is, there's a range of things we do. We sort of have a clinic and an online clinic, so I can help women anywhere really. And we do a deep dive assessment of everything holistically. I really like looking at that bigger picture. It's not one piece of their life, it's all the pieces of that puzzle. And then I work out what are the things that we can start with to get some baseline assessments, because there is a really big, there's a lot of noise about perimenopause, great, a lot of information, but a lot of overwhelm, and not everything's perimenopause. So the first thing I do is let's find out what it is that we need to help you with, and then we layer things on different tactics that fit. I like to do things that fit within people's lifestyle that they're going to stick to, and I like to empower them to work out how to keep doing it themselves. So I'm not a meal plan nutritionist. I won't give you a meal plan because I don't want you to have to see me for the rest of your life. I want you to see me and me give you the tools that you can put together a healthy plate and choose a supplement that's right for you, or go to the doctor and ask for what you need and be your own advocate. Because it's not realistic to be able to see me then for the 4 to 10 years that you're experiencing this. So that's my main goal.
Yeah. And so what you had mentioned, you had developed your own method with working with women that had, you've seen success with probably yourself and your clients. What are the big rocks in that program, would you say?
Yes. So I have this cake analogy. I love cake. So, and my book launched last week in Melbourne. I had cupcakes. So it was great to talk to this when I had these beautiful cakes there. So to me, it's about the ingredients in your cake, but you're a unique individual. The ingredients in your cake's different to mine. The things you need in your life are different to the next person. So the first thing I try and do is try and just calm the noise. Calm the influencers telling you all need creatine, or you all need this, or you all need that, because there's not one thing that every single woman in this phase of life needs. Everybody has their own individual requirements. Obviously, nutritionally, there are protein requirements that are similar, but it's not the same, recipe for each person. So I start with nutrition as that foundation. After doing the assessment, obviously, of blood work and things like that, we then look at nutrition, building a solid base there. So many things in there, but the one thing I'll say is I very heavily lean towards the Mediterranean dietary pattern. Great for gut health, great for your liver and your hormone processing, great for reducing inflammation, which is a huge thing happening in this phase of life as we age. That's kind of your base, your flour or your sugar that's in the cake. And then I then look at lifestyle next as that bolstering aspect of nutrition. So your sleep, your stress levels. One thing I love to focus on is huge amount of research from a doctor called Susan Pinker around connection. What connection and community can you build around you? So I love the community that you've built. Have people around you to support you. It makes so much difference, and the evidence is there. Exercise, I know we both love that. That is actually got the most evidence of helping with symptoms of perimenopause. So, strength training, keeping yourself active. And then on top of that, then I talk about this, like the chocolate chips or the carrot and walnuts in the carrot cake, like other supplements. You don't always need them, but it's good that you assess it with somebody, a health professional, to find out which ones will help you. Otherwise, you could be spending a lot of money, taking a lot of things, and then not actually making a difference, which are common. Women come taking 14 or 15 different things. And I say, do you feel any better? No. Well, You know why? You feel pressured to based on what you see. And then the icing on the cake, and my husband always says cakes taste better with icing, but not everyone can eat icing or tolerate it, but some people can. And when they can, it actually makes things a lot better, is the medication piece. So the HRT or the MHT, it differs in how we refer to it across the different countries, or different medicines that you might need from your doctor. So you may need them, you may not want to take them, you may want to try other things, but it's all part of your own personal recipe. So I try and build that out for a person so they can go back to the GP and advocate for themselves and have all those elements of their cake for themselves.
Let's talk a little bit about the cake and the Mediterranean diet piece.
Yeah.
What aspects of that do you think are most useful? I mean, I have my notions when you talk about that, fiber being one of them, all of the plant foods and the phytochemicals and phytonutrients you get from that anti-inflammatory piece. I mean, is that where we're going with the Mediterranean diet?
Yeah, definitely. Fiber, and so fantastic for you anyway, for your gut health, but helps you process that excess estrogen. If you have excess, it can actually help to recycle it and help you if you've got an estrogen deficiency. So it's actually working to balance your estrogen levels in the body. Fiber is just so important. So, and you're getting that through the wonderful, as you mentioned, plant-based foods or whole grain, breads and things that are, really your carbohydrates that I call them smart carbs. So they're kind of things that are giving you longer energy levels for a longer period of time, and a lot of fiber. And then you mentioned the plant-based, the phytochemicals, phytonutrients in those beautiful fruits and vegetables and herbs and all the things they have in the Mediterranean diet, as the majority of their plate is those foods. Again, fiber, but then nutrients like flavonoids, which are anti-inflammatory. Inflammation is huge. Inflammaging, as we know, as we age, but in this phase of life, the inflammation levels will be a bit more. So if we can bring it down through those antioxidants in foods like that. And then my most favorite part of the Mediterranean diet is extra virgin olive oil. So getting that extra virgin grade. It has plant-based phytonutrients that are anti-inflammatory, one that's called oleocanthal. It's got, it reduces inflammation. It helps with brain health. It helps with gut health. It even contains the precursors for melatonin, which will help with sleep. So extra virgin olive oil is just to me, I love it. I think it's amazing. 2 to 3 tablespoons a day is not going to impact your weight if you're eating it as part of a Mediterranean dietary pattern, because most of what you're eating is plant-based. And then, red meat maybe once, twice a week, but try and have fish, chicken, like lean sort of protein sources. Bit of a tweak on the Mediterranean diet. Can you have some sort of soy-based sort of phytoestrogen tofu or tempeh as well? And, things in moderation. The processed foods, moderation. They don't really eat them in that diet. Alcohol, red wine occasionally is good, but in moderation. So that, very similar to what you mentioned. But I like using the analogy because when you look at the different tactics, it can be overwhelming. So I'm going to say, Celine, you've got to do this, increase your fiber, you do this, do that. And people can walk out or leave the appointment and think, what do I do now? So I love that dietary pattern because it gives them something they can just follow quite easily, and it's quite well known as well.
Yeah, and the fiber, when you mentioned the part about the hormone regulation, it's because it's feeding the estrobiome. What is there's
estrobiome? Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, that's
which is the collection of bacteria in the gut that is impacted in our phase of life. It's a gut microbiome essentially, but in this phase of life, it's called the estrobiome because the bacteria changes in the gut and plays a really smart role. So it either can recycle that estrogen and give you more, or it can help you eliminate it.
Right.
That's if it's in a good state. So you're giving it the fiber it needs and the plant foods and the diversity. You may have heard this, so if you have, please let me know. But, there's research showing that if you eat 30 different types of plant foods a week, that increases the diversity of your gut microbiome and your estrobiome, or your gut health essentially, so much that it really will be at its optimal. Now, I eat mainly plant-based. Getting to 30 can be difficult, but don't forget nuts and seeds count towards that. Sprinkling hemp seeds or sunflower seeds on a salad or something, that counts for one of those. So you can get to it pretty easily if you start to ladder that up.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's great advice. That we know so little still about the gut microbiome, but the more you learn about it and how it affects mood and how our hormones this time of life. You talked about inflammation. with the hormonal changes, that goes up, and our diversity changes in our gut. So we just have to be more on top of all of that stuff that,
Yeah. Yeah. And the other,
that our hormones maybe used to do for us, I guess is the best way to put it.
yeah, 100%. And the other thing, because we're also aging too, right? So you're
Yeah,
going
right.
to, yeah. The other thing I love about it, and I like to mention this because it doesn't get a lot of the spotlight, is your liver. So having fiber helps with your liver health. Reducing the alcohol helps with your liver health. Your liver is really important. It is processing those hormones. So if you're getting fatty liver, because it can happen quite commonly, people don't often know they've got this, right? So
Yeah.
getting your liver function tested, making sure your liver's functioning really well, Mediterranean diet's going to help with that. Again, help support your body to process these hormones differently as they start to become a little bit up and down in this phase of life.
Excellent. What part of life was life? What part of the cake, I should say, was lifestyle? Remind me. Where in the cake?
The choc chips and the carrot and the walnuts.
Okay.
Depends on your cake flavor. Blueberries, it could even.
So what are the lifestyle,
Yeah.
particularly the things that you hone in on?
Sleep, so important. Getting your sleep is really important because it's helping your body process everything. I think of sleep like a filing cabinet because it lets your body then process everything, file it all away, and get everything kind of organized in your brain and gives you that bank up of energy and things that you need for the next day. So that's important. And things like, a handful of pistachios before bedtime can be helpful for sleep because that helps melatonin production. So there's things you can do, and then also lots of tips, which we can talk about later on, and they are in the book too, but it's about, how do you get a better sleep hygiene, self-care and things like that, looking after yourself, giving yourself downtime, exercise. And I know this is just for me, it's wonderful to see the impact of exercise. And it's changed, right? Because we were told, I saw, do you remember Denise Austin?
God, yes. I've worked with Denise Austin.
Yeah,
I used to write for Prevention magazine, and I did a lot of photo shoots with Denise. I added to her column. Yeah.
Well, I used to do all the way over here in Australia. I used to have her video cassettes, and I used to do her workouts on the TV, and I used to do them. We don't have to do that, and it's great news for us because that was really exhausting. And what happens in this phase of life, you do lots and lots and lots of that, you get more inflammation and you get more fatigue. Yes, you can do a couple of high-intensity workouts a week. I'm not saying never do Denise's workouts or others. I think she's an icon, and it was great that she was sharing that stuff. But it's about balancing it. So we know the strength training. I'm sure people have spoken about this on your podcast, and you would know this very well yourself, building that muscle to support the muscle loss, but then also to keep your bones strong. So later in life, you're not having problems with weak and brittle bones and falling. So I like to think not about the now, but just also about, you're going to live a third of your life at least out of this phase. So think about that. And lots more with exercise. And then the social connection piece and community, I'm really big on that just because I feel like I see a big difference. Sometimes we have this notion that we have to kind of suffer in silence and you don't want to tell anybody about it. The minute you talk to a friend about what's happening, they'll definitely tell you what's happening back. And people start to feel like, oh, it's not just me. We're in this together. And it really helps people get through. So they're probably the main ones that come to mind.
Yeah.
Actually, sorry. I just thought.
No, go ahead.
And environment. So endocrine disrupting chemicals in your environment can impact your hormone levels. Now, this one's interesting because it can mean you have to clean your entire house out of everything that you own and change everything over, which can be overwhelming. So I just ask people to be conscious of it. So, can you heat food in glass containers, not plastic containers? Or can you try and get makeup and cosmetics without phthalates or parabens, which are two of the main ones? So little things that you can do to be a bit more natural or eco will mean that you've got less disruption in your environment as well. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, we could have a whole podcast on forever chemicals and all the and plastics. So I think those are good. I think those are good tips. And I think that, obviously sleep recovery. I mean, we do have an audience that does CrossFit and trains for Ironman and, marathon and does a lot of high intensity. But I always just, as we started talking about that, tell people you really do need to respect your recovery days and you really do need to balance that out now more.
100%, yeah. And look, I say that, but training for a marathon, you're doing high intensity 5 times a week, right? So same with the rest of the people in this group of people like us that like this type of training. You're 100% right. you need, if I'm doing a 25-kilometer run on a weekend, and sorry, I can't do the miles conversion. I'm not good at that, but a long run, a couple of hours, say, on the weekend, it's a Saturday, I'm not doing another run till like a Tuesday or Wednesday, because I know my body needs to calm down with this inflammation. And if I run on Monday, I'm going to end up getting really sore, being really tired. So it's listening to your body and recovering. So I do lots of ice baths and sauna and swimming and walking in between. But I think you've got to put a lot more thought and planning into the recovery than what you think. It's not just about the running. It's about, to me, I think you only get to that marathon start line or the Ironman start line because of the recovery and the respect you've given to your body.
100%. And as we know, injuries, musculoskeletal syndrome, all of that, problems with that system rise during this time too, partly because of the inflammation we talked about and the other changes in the tissues. So really respecting that is very important. And the Mediterranean diet, helps with that too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And then when you talk about, you do have a section of supplements, and supplements are such an interesting topic because they take such a beating, in some circles on the internet. And I understand that because there's 12 million supplements. And as you mentioned, people sometimes take 12 million supplements and they don't know what they're taking. Yeah. But I do think they have a place. I take some supplements. And if I can't qualify what they're doing for me, I don't take them, right? Yeah. Like that's sort of my rule. Like if I don't feel anything or see anything, then it just goes by the wayside.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? So it's like anything in life. If you're doing something but you're not getting a return, why would you continue? So I always look at what are the symptoms. So once we've looked at establishing a really good foundation in nutrition and lifestyle, in parallel, we'll do these things, but obviously I'm building these things up slowly for my clients in a realistic way. But the way you can plan it out, if you're doing it for yourself, is you look at your nutrition, look at your lifestyle, and then think, well, what's left? What am I still experiencing here? Am I still experiencing brain fog, hot flushes? Am I still having trouble sleeping? Is my mood still really low? Am I getting aches and pains in my shoulder, or am I not recovering that well? And then choose the supplement that may then support that. So creatine gets all of the noise because it's got so much wonderful evidence, right? So it is, and for people that are very active, it's fantastic because it's going to help with that muscle support. But then it's also getting great and more emerging evidence, particularly even in this age group, which is great because we lack specific evidence for lots of things in our age group. But creatine and brain fog and mental clarity, huge, right? So it's the dose too. So you can 5 grams a day of creatine monohydrates, usually what the research says. But I find lots of women come to me and say, I'm taking 20 grams of creatine because I saw X, Y, and Z on Instagram doing it. I'm taking it every day and I'm really bloated. My stomach's upset and I'm not feeling great and it's not making me feel any better. I'm like, well, stop taking that. It's not for you. Let's think of what else we can do to support your muscles and your mood. So it's about matching it up. And then if you try the creatine for 3 weeks and think, wow, I'm feeling more clear in the head. I'm feeling good. Keep taking it. But if you're feeling absolutely no difference whatsoever, then really maybe you need to think about what else you might have, because you could take probiotics, creatine, ashwagandha, magnesium glycinate, magnesium threonate, all these different things. But do you need all of them? Some of these things you can also get through food. And if you've got that good food foundation, you are getting those nutrients too. So they definitely have a place. And don't get me wrong, I love supplements because I think that if you use them correctly in the right dose, in the right situation, they can really be effective. And for women who can't take or don't want to take medicines, there are some things we can do there that really help support them. But it doesn't mean everyone needs to take them. And just because you see a smoothie being made in the morning by a key influencer that's got 8 different things in it, which, gosh, I think would probably cost like $80 a week or something to make it, it doesn't mean you have to do that. And the biggest thing I find is women feel bad about that. I can't afford all those supplements, or I can't find the ones that are recommended by this particular person. It's really taking a step back and thinking what's right for you.
Yeah. You'll be okay. I promise you, you'll be okay. We can find another way. I know. I totally agree. I'm curious. I'm going through your book right now to see if you have collagen, and you do have collagen in it, because that is the one I find has the most sort of like arguing back and forth online, even among the group. And I suspect it's because there's so many different types and forms and formulations. Can you speak a bit to collagen?
Yeah, of course. So I think collagen is fantastic for specific uses. So obviously we get told a lot about collagen. When it first came out, it was all about skin health and your wrinkles and your appearance. And yeah, there are some pretty good trials showing it does have impact on that. But the reason I like to recommend collagen when it's required is because of its impact on the joints, on the tendons, on your, your recovery. So it can really help with the tendon health. And it's fantastic for people doing lots of exercise too, for that recovery. So there is a collagen that I recommend. It's an Australian brand. So, and I don't like to talk to brands broadly, but there are brands and types you can take with the Fortizol collagen and the Verisol that are particularly good within 30 minutes of finishing that activity, because it will then help to replenish the collagen in your joints and your ligaments and tendons and help to recover and with joint inflammation and joint health. I love it for that. It does also help with your skin health. It's not going to be the be all and end all, but it will help with that. The evidence is really building. The reason why there gets a lot of different feedback on it is it's not the solution to everyone's problem. It doesn't work for everybody either. And it's quite expensive and there's different types. So you've got your marine-based collagens, which are the only ones I'm willing to take because I don't eat meat. And they have got good evidence of benefit. You have to make sure it's always hydrolyzed collagen, which just means it's broken down so that your body can absorb it well, essentially, in a nutshell. The bovine or animal-based or cow-based collagen is the most effective at with the joint health, with the skin health. So if you can get that, again, getting a hydrolyzed format is good. And then a bit of the confusion comes up with what about these plant-based or these vegan type collagen products? Unfortunately, they're not going to be the same. So what they usually are is a collection of like the different amino acids or components of collagen so that when you take them, your body can make more collagen. Your body makes collagen anyway, and it uses the food that you eat to do that. So their evidence is lacking in terms of how they actually perform in the body. So if you're using it, I'd go, if you can, for a hydrolyzed bovine one, if you can, and you do eat meat or will eat meat, and then marine if you can't as well. So, for example, when I'm training for marathon, I'm always taking my collagen because I'm making sure that I know my joints need that support. So when required, I think it's a good thing to do.
And is there a type? Like
Yeah,
a type?
there's the
Yeah.
hydrolyzed one. I don't know if the proprietary ingredient names are the same in Australia versus in the US, but there are proprietary ingredients called Fortisol and Verisol. Fortibone, I keep saying Fortisol. Fortibone and Verisol, and they're particular types that have been formulated with the different types of collagen and then clinically trialed to ensure they're really good for your bones and also really good for your skin or for your joints. So those proprietary ingredients have put together the right type of collagen to do that. I'm pretty sure it actually is the same across the globe, those same things. Yeah, so you can get those, look for those proprietary ones as well, and they'll have the proper claims on the packet about what they actually do. But you just want to make sure you can get one. They can be quite expensive because of that sort of proprietariness behind them. So my tip is find a hydrolyzed bovine collagen if you can, and then you're pretty much going to be okay. The dose is variable, so it's hard to just give you a dose of collagen because the amount in each powder or capsule or supplement is different. So you're best to be guided by the different brands in that respect.
And I know you mentioned omega-3s.
Yeah, love that. I mean, I prefer you get them through your food if you can. So you're going to get them through like your salmon, your mackerel, your fish-based foods. You can get them through chia seeds too, so your plant-based ones aren't as effective as your animal ones. I'll talk through that in a tick, but if you're plant-based diet, you're basically getting the precursor for an omega-3 through things like alpha-linoleic acid, so your linseeds, your flax seeds, your chias. The reason you want the animal-based omega-3s is you want the EPA and DHA, which are like the active fatty acids that are really going to help with your heart health, your brain health, your cholesterol, lots of different things in the body. Inflammation, that was the one. So if you're eating high quality like fish with omega-3s a couple of times a week, you're probably going to be, and eating lots of those plant-based ones that give you the precursors, you're probably going to be okay. But I love omega-3s treating things therapeutically. So if you're having lots of inflammation and lots of pain, you can increase the dose to get to an effective dose that will actually reduce inflammation. You have to be very careful if you're taking other medicines, though. It can interact with blood thinners and things like that. So it's not one that you're going to go on a high dose of without speaking to a doctor or pharmacist or health professional. Really good for the mood and for your brain. Yeah, so that's why Mediterranean diet, they have the fish in there, they have all that stuff in there, helps with the brain health as well. So, and also your heart health. So, we often can get stuck in the now. I mentioned this briefly before, but I'm always thinking about the future. So, as we get post menopause, in that phase of life, our bone health is an issue. We get lots of people with osteopenia, osteoporosis, brittle bones falling as we age. Broken bones in older age are really detrimental to health. And then our risk of heart issues equalizes to a man's after menopause. And it's much lower risk because the estrogen's protecting us of that. So I think all the time, every time I'm putting together a plan or a recommendation for someone, how am I strengthening their bones and how am I helping their heart and their blood fats and cholesterol for the future? And omega-3s are going to do the cholesterol heart piece. They're going to help balance out the good, bad cholesterol. So if you need them, so if you having them in your food, you're okay. But if you've got inflammation or your blood test shows your lipids are a bit off or whatever that might be, they may be a good option for you.
Excellent. And iodine comes up in your book, and that's something that I've seen come up a couple of times with regard to thyroid health. Can you speak to that just a little bit?
Yeah, I take iodine myself, actually. It's one of the ones I take every day. So it actually can help with those high estrogen type symptoms. So when you've got like breast pain or if you've got like mood changes or sometimes you can get a bit like puffiness or excess weight when you've got a lot of estrogen and where you're getting that fat distribution around the midline. And look, this is a little contentious one because there's not an agreement across the medical profession, but not unusual with lots of things. But on the whole, there is a belief that, and based on research too, that many women are deficient in iodine and that we don't have a lot in our diets, fortified in breads and things, usually in Australia, and I'm sure it's the same in across the world. And that low iodine means our thyroid actually isn't functioning the way it should function. And your thyroid health symptoms of low thyroid or hypothyroidism are very similar to symptoms of perimenopause. So the two, you always need to make sure your thyroid health's in check. So your doctor checks you if your thyroid's a little bit off or if you're having those really sore, tender breasts, sort of PMS type symptoms are getting worse. It can be a good one. I did it personally. Happy to share this. I was getting a lot of breast tenderness, particularly when my period was sort of coming. So that was giving me signals. Doesn't happen anymore because I'm taking the iodine. So maybe I've taken that signal away from myself. I take it every morning and it helps too with that. I don't have any more issues with that as well. So it's an interesting one because the strength that you can buy over the counter in Australia is a lot lower than what you actually need to have the impact. So you need to speak to a doctor, a holistic doctor that will help compound some for you. That may be different in the States and other places, but you definitely need to speak to somebody about the dose because you don't want too much iodine because then you can have impacts on your thyroid too. So it's not what's spoken about a lot, but it's very, very effective.
Talk to me a little bit about how the conversation is unfolding on hormone therapy in Australia, because you probably have seen everything that's going on here. What is
We've gone from I'm in agreement with all the wonderful talk about it. Like it's if you start taking HRT, or we call it MHT, it just varies, but I'll just keep HRT for this conversation. If you started in perimenopause, the benefits very, very often outweigh the risks. The improvement on your mood, your hot flushes, improvement for your later life bone and heart. And the Women's Health Initiative, I'm sure you've spoken about it in previous podcasts and other forums, but all the research that came out many years ago about that they were all going to cause cancer and they were just the worst drugs in the world. We know that that was really misinterpreted. So I think we're coming to a point where, as consumers, and we're telling our consumers and patients, it's not the scary drug that we once thought it was. It's not going to cause cancer in every single person who takes it. There's different formats that you can use, like topical estrogen, that will reduce the risk, even have almost no risk, right? I don't ever like saying no risk because how do you really ever know, right? But the research is showing us it's very, very minimal, if sometimes even protective against these cancers. So I'm all for that. I'm for the talk about testosterone. I also used testosterone while I was training. My testosterone levels were very, very low. I wasn't having any symptoms for that, but my doctor was concerned about my muscles and their ability to run that much and exercise that much without having adequate testosterone. So I used a compounded cream, actually, a lower dose, which is why it was compounded, and I was using that daily. I've stopped that now. So I agree with using that as needed. Progesterone is calming, helps with some of those sleep symptoms and a bunch of other things. And we know progesterone's the first sort of thing to go down. So, yeah, great. But what I will say is, well, I feel like we've gone to the other end, that everybody thinks they need it. You always need it. It's always safe for you. If you're not taking it, there's something wrong with you. And I think we have to get to a middle ground again. Like, we need some balance. Firstly, not everybody wants to take medicine, whether it's HRT or not. Some people just don't want to, and you should not feel bad about that if you don't want to. You can look at the other parts of the cake and do whatever you can to optimize that. If you want to take it, you need to take it. It's recommended for you. It's going to be safe if your doctor's recommended it for you. Okay, so don't get too worried, because there still are some older doctors or less educated doctors telling people it's going. Like, my friend recently got a prescription for some estrogen gel and progesterone capsules, and she walked out of there getting told it was going to cause uterine cancer. So, and it wasn't a balanced conversation. Yeah. So that to me really upset me. The thing about it is as well, though, you're an individual again, like with your cake. So if you've got a family history of breast cancer or you've had breast cancer, I'm not saying you shouldn't use it. You just need to have a conversation with your doctor about what are all the risks, a really well-informed doctor. So in Australia, I know you can go to the Australasian Menopause Society and find a doctor specialising in, with a special interest in, I should say, women's health and perimenopause and menopause. And I'm sure, is there somewhere in the US as well? Yeah, there'd be places you can, yeah.
Menopause.org.
Perfect. So there's the different places you can go wherever you're living. There'll be an association that will help. That doctor talks to you about it. So just because you read online that there's no risk at all with any types of cancer with hormone replacement therapy, there still are some formats that might slightly increase risk here or there might be other reasons why you may not be able to take it. So yes, that might be the minority. The majority usually take it. It's pretty good. The benefits outweigh the risk, but it's come to a society where we all think we can go to the doctor and kind of demand it, but we have to respect that the doctor really needs to tell us the information and understand that there are still some slight risks, but that's the same with every medicine that you take. Take a Panadol or an acetaminophen, better not bring that one up, but a non-steroidal or something, anti-inflammatory, there's always risks, but people just don't talk about those risks because they're seen as everyday drugs. This has just gotten all the highlight.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And I also feel like there's a tendency to protect women from themselves more than there is men. Like, we give men all kinds of stuff. Take this Viagra, maybe you'll go blind. I don't know, for our erections. But like, women, we still like bubble wrap them a little bit. And I think women are very intelligent and can make their decisions.
Yeah, yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm an advocate for HRT. I'm using it, and I recommend you can speak to your doctor. I've done some pieces I'm happy to share with you. It's not in the book, but I've done some pieces about how to advocate for yourself at the GP and how to have that conversation. So really happy to share those links with you for your listeners and audience. But just respect that sometimes it may not be right. And if that is the case, don't feel bad that every second person on Instagram's telling you it's the only solution, because you may not tolerate it.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to make sure our audience heard? And actually, before you answer that, I was curious if you did feel any different on testosterone.
Yes. No. The first few days I've taken, do you know what? I'll tell you this story. I think it's interesting. So I'm pretty educated in this space. And when I went to pick up my compounded testosterone, the pharmacist said, "Oh, why are you getting this? Are you sure this is safe? This is compounded. Why are you using this?" And I was like, whoa. And I got home and I was like, oh, will I use this? And that's powerful, right? Even me, I'm like, shook myself out of it and was like, yes, you are taking it. And I rang my doctor, who then educated that pharmacist. So I think it's about that. I felt so warm and kind of like my heart rate was a bit higher the first couple of days I was using it. I don't know if that was actually even the testosterone, but that's how I felt. And I actually was going to stop, and I was like, come on, you need to be using this. I didn't feel any different, but I will say I did have my recovery from running was a lot better.
Hmm.
I was able to run a long distance on a weekend and find the next day I wasn't sore, or I found that my muscles were in the gym, like I was able to build that muscle because you know how important that is towards for marathon training or for any training to have that strength in your legs. I was able to build my quad strength a little bit more, but I didn't feel any different.
That's really interesting to me because when athletes use it, you know, and having come from the cycling world and a lot of semi-professional racing, everybody thinks that people use testosterone to like get big or whatever, but like really they use it for that recovery piece.
They do, yeah. And your muscles are so important in this space. If you know, my very first time running a half marathon, I just decided I'll start running, and all I was doing was running, and then I blew my IT band on the day of the half marathon, and no wonder. I had no strength in my glutes or my quads or my hamstrings. So that's why it was good for me. And then the doctors said, you know, now you're not running it, you don't need it because it's actually not treating anything else, but it's there for if you were to start running again. And I'm training for another half marathon in April, so I'll start using it again once the training ramps up. Yeah.
All right, now we can, as we come up to the top of the hour. Is there anything that you wanted to leave the audience with we haven't talked about?
I think we've covered the cake thing is my main thing. I would just say, you know, have a think about what works for you, and if it can be overwhelming and it's hard to think, how am I going to fit this amount of protein in? How am I going to fit these supplements in? So, there's free resources also on my website around these. I'll talk about the book, but there's also free ways that you can get this information that I can share, because also conscious with this economy, you know, it's hard to buy everything thrown at you, but it's about building a plan for you. So through the book, I talk about, you know, firstly, diving into what are your health goals, what do you actually want to achieve, and having those key goals that you anchor to. And then you build yourself a plan around that nutrition, the lifestyle, the supplements, and the medication and then I've got like an action plan section that you can build that action plan out, and it breaks it down. So the key message there is do a couple of things. So if you want to improve your health, have a look at, well, how can I sort of lean into a Mediterranean style diet? How can I try and increase my protein at breakfast? We know it's really great at breakfast time, and generally increase my protein, but not be obsessed with everything I eat needs to be protein packed. Like, how can I slowly increase that protein? You know, how can I get involved in a community, or how can I speak to an exercise professional who's going to help? So build little goals, and then they start becoming your normal life. And then you add more onto it once you've sort of mastered those. Because the biggest thing I get from women is they come to me and they're like, I'm overwhelmed. I've seen 8 different practitioners. I'm taking 10 different supplements. I don't even know what they do. I'm trying to track my protein every day. I'm buying protein-enriched water. I can't get to my protein level. Someone's told me I've got to have all this protein. And I'm thinking, how's your kidney processing all that protein? It's way too much. So simple little things that you can change that are bite-sized, and then review it every few months and add a few things in. And each small change you make will make a difference, and eventually it becomes your normal. Because if you're overwhelmed, what often happens is you just throw the baby out with the bathwater, and you just go back to how you were before, and you think this is all too hard and I'm going to forget about it. So think about it as small actionable changes that shouldn't be overwhelming.
That's a good mic drop right there. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your own story and your advice with us.
Thank you, Celine.
Well, that's our show. Come on back for another sit down with fat loss and protein researcher Dr. Bill Campbell, who has been diving deep into all things menopause and will be sharing what he's found thus far. You won't want to miss that one. So come on back then. And until then, as always, stay feisty. You've been listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I'm your host, Celine Yeager. The show is edited and produced by the strong, talented, and amazing women at Live Feisty Media. Follow us on social media at Feisty Menopause, and please help us spread the word. Screenshot and share this episode on your social media channels with the tag @FeistyMenopause. Share the show with your friends, and please subscribe, like, review, and rate this show wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth and good reviews make it easier for other listeners to find. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay feisty.